Welcome back to the Cybersecurity Matchmaker. I just played guitar.
That was awesome.
I don't play
I love it.
guitar. I like to strum. I really honestly don't know a lot of tunes. But as I was just mentioning, I'm having a little problem bringing in my ideal musical beginning, which is Dr. Dre beats. And I've had like a bunch of different ways that I've tried to do it and kind of did it. So after the show, I'm going to ask for some advice. But anyway.
Awesome. I love it.
And is the audio okay? Because last week I was having a little bit of stuff. Good?
It sounds great.
Yeah, you sound amazing.
And you guys sound amazing. So welcome to the show, Alissa and Melissa Knight. This is so exciting. We are going to talk about, I want to hear everything about how this thing started. We're going to talk about who you guys are as well.
You're doing there.
But yeah, I figured you'd be up for it, right?
All right, hey, there's no holds barred. No holds barred. We'll talk about anything.
Cool. So, but when I was thinking about okay, who in the world would come up with the idea of a cybersecurity media conglomerate? I mean, I was like, you know what? Actually, it actually makes sense because of the way I met you guys. I don't know if you remember, but we had been chatting. Me and Alissa had been chatting about some partnership biz dev stuff. And I was like, and hey, I'm off to Israel next week for Cybertech Tel Aviv, which is my favorite thing. I'm going to Cybertech New York City next week. And I was like, are you guys going, or you should go?
And we just happened to be going. Actually, no, we were. You talked us into it. We were.
Did I really sell it? Did I sell it hard? I might have sold it hard.
I was like, we should go to Tel Aviv. That was amazing. Yeah, it was cool. We had a really good time, and it was great meeting you there.
Fun. Yeah, it was so fun, and it was just so cool to see people who just make stuff happen. And that is kind of the theme of who I'm bringing on these days. There's a lot of complaining in the industry about stuff that isn't right, isn't cool, isn't fun, isn't getting to the heart of things. And I love people who don't just sit around and complain and who just actually make it happen, make it more interesting.
Yeah.
And that's you guys. So just as a quick intro to who you guys are, Alissa is best known for having been a reformed Black Hatter, which is a whole thing I want to hear everything about another time, and is turned into a content creator. And you are creative, right? So she's a hacker, but a creative. I listened to one of your videos where you're like, you don't have to be such a coder to be a really good hacker. All that psychology. So now is currently, media personality, API, car hacking, all kinds of really, really intense, interesting hacking. She's making it interesting. So that is just so exciting. And then Melissa, who is her wife, you guys are power couple of the century in cybersecurity. And Melissa's a CISO and has been a security defender and security exec at companies like Herjavec. I've never said it out loud. I've only and NNSA and the DoD. And it's kind of funny. I always think it is kind of a movie in and of itself, like a hacker and a CISO.
A hacker marrying a CISO? Isn't that great? I'm like, oh my God, it's spy versus spy gets married.
Yeah, it really is. You should definitely do that movie also one day. So.
I like it.
But anyway, yes, thank you so much for coming on. And it just is, and a little plug. We're going to be hanging out next week as well at the Cybersecurity Marketing Society.
I'm excited. Mel's excited. I'm excited. It's going to be good.
It's going to be great. And I'm going to post the link to join, but it's just such a cool thing. What an amazing community of people who there could be companies in competition with each other, but everybody wants each other to be their best and they're sharing best practices. And it's going to be incredible. We all know how
idea. I love the concept. And it just Maria, all of them are amazing. Gianna, they're great ladies, and I'm so glad that they put something like this together because we've needed. I don't even know. Is there even a conference for CMOs in other industries? But just needed something like this. It's a great idea. I love the concept.
And I mean, of course, I want to mention that you are the keynote speaker. So we're so excited about that.
Yay! Yeah.
So, yeah, so we're sitting here with two people who were regular, I don't know about that, but people in the cybersecurity industry. And I think maybe we go backwards, forwards to backwards, like Back to the Future. I want to hear about like the night. I'm sure it was a night and there was wine, but I want to hear about the moment where you guys were like, "Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's make a cybersecurity what are we like a what did I call it?
Filmmaking. Yeah. So
Like,
so
let's
it's
make a, like, thing. I wanna
yeah.
hear about that conversation. I wanna
Okay.
hear, like, what happened right after, like, what was the next step? So, go for it, and then we'll get into your personal stories also as well.
So Mel, if you want, I can start out and talk about how this all began. But so it started with Claire Trimble. She's the chief marketing officer, or at the time, was the chief marketing officer for a company called Elusive, which made deception technology. And we had been creating white papers for them.
Okay.
And then we got on a call and she's like, "Hey, Alyssa, what if we were to do like a kind of like a little short movie, little short film where you are this ransomware hacker and we make a movie and how you came up against our technology and you failed." And I was like, "That's a great idea." So we at the time we were shooting with these black magic cameras, and we had a basic understanding of lighting and lenses. I like very, very rudimentary basic.
I
And
just put on more lighting. Better?
yeah, lighting's important. So we're like, yeah, let's shoot this in our house. So it became this. It really just became this most successful marketing campaign for Elusive, and it started out with me waking up in bed and going through the motions of my morning routine, and then going up to my computer and starting to hack, and how I came up against this deception technology that stopped me. And it was called View from the Attacker. We had so much fun with it. I sat down with Mom like, "Mel, this was a lot of fun. We could like do this. Like we could start a company around this." And
So shocker, it was your idea and not Mel's.
no, it was. I think I will say it was more like a joint kind of
Okay,
collaborative
cool.
decision. I think we both kind of came up with it at the same time. But
Well,
like I was like,
she
we
literally
we
grabbed the camera that we had, and she's like, "Mel, we're gonna film this. Figure it out. Grab some sticks." We actually filmed it in this room right here,
Amazing.
and we just kind of
Just made it
got
happen.
excited and
yeah, the rest was history. So it was we realized like, look, if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. So what we did was, at the time we had a company called Night Inc., which was basically doing white papers. It was adversarial content, proving the efficacy of a product by hacking something and then writing a white paper around it, which we coined as adversarial content. And then we realized like we didn't really want to pollute that company with what we were doing with film. So we were like, look, let's just start a film production company. And at the time we first started out as M&A Night Entertainment. And you'll see that in kind of like our YouTube videos, as our older videos. And then we fast forward, we decided everything was going to be under this Night Group brand. So we formed this holding company called Night Group, and all of the companies underneath it are series LLCs. So we have Night Coffee Co., which is the coffee company. We have Night Inc.,
I didn't know
which
about
is
the coffee company.
yeah, we'll have to talk about that. It's
Okay,
interesting.
we'll talk about that. Okay.
With Night Inc., then we formed Night Studios, and so M&A Night Entertainment became Night Studios, and we just as when that video came out, a lot of CMOs started reaching out to us saying, "Hey, I want something like this." And so, believe it or not, Mimi, 100% of our sales have been inbound. We haven't done any outbound sales. And so, yeah, so it was like,
Are your films generally done in partnership? I have noticed partnerships often.
all of them.
yeah,
Is
so
that the business model?
It's very traditional Hollywood. So, for example, when you have a film, you have these, investors and these different co-producers who co-produce the film and finance it. So, when you have a DreamWorks film, you'll see like Amblin Entertainment or some of these other film production companies that will run their trailer in the beginning. Those are co-producers, and so we run Night Studios the same way. So we'll film a TV series, for example. We'll have a company that will sign up for the entire first season. So Shannon Wilkinson, our dear friend and also client over at Tego Cyber, they signed up for a full season up front for this new series that we're filming called Dark Ops. And that we just filmed that in a private jet. That was a lot of fun. Sorry, my head keeps hitting the microphone. So we started. So that Tego Cyber is a co-producer of Dark Ops, and so you'll see Night Studios logo, and then you'll see Tego Cyber's logo, and they finance the series. So we produce it, and the cybersecurity vendor co-produces it or finances it.
That's so cool. And then do you generally do you weave in some of, let's say, some of that spirit of personalizing their particular product into the film, or is it pure art and then they're just kind of sponsoring it?
We're big believers in Simon Sinek's people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So, that's really the point of this, is that we want to totally reinvent cybersecurity marketing. And instead of putting out, white papers and slicks about the features of a product, we want to show why you actually need the product. And so
we're really doing education. I mean,
that company and that TV show, that will be me if I don't buy this product. And so the neat thing about our show is that you're like, oh, that technology is so cool, that API security solution is so cool, or that threat management solution is so cool. I can go home and buy it. So you see it in the TV show, and then you can go back to the office and buy it. So
product placement. I mean, that is
it's like Audi and Iron Man to the nth degree, right? So it's taking these products and weaving it into the story arc. So we go through the entire process of putting out a casting call and bringing in actors who audition for the roles, and then we cast them, and then we do the rehearsals, what's called the table read, and then we do a week of filming. So each show is about 26 minutes in length with commercials. We're excited to announce that we've been signed as a studio with AMC Movie Theaters. They've done several red carpet movie premieres for us, and we've also just brought home our 4th award from Cannes, for Cannes Award for Cannes Independent Film Festival. So
I didn't realize there were multiple. That's awesome. That is so exciting.
We're excited. So it's been a lot of fun. You'll be shocked to know that we're on our 8th franchise now, our 8th TV series.
I'm not shocked.
and we just started a year ago. Like, it's been 1 year in December.
So I have to ask this because this is always that thing. You're a CISO, Melissa. So I'm curious, and I'm just going to ask it outright because what is there?
Why not?
But do you think the CISOs think this is cheesy, or do you think the CISOs are really appreciating this kind of, it's almost like full blown, we really want to work to get your attention and give you something you're going to enjoy? Do you think it's going into that fully, or do you find that, from your vantage point, let's say you're building them. So can you see still the CISO's perspective? And I don't know, I'm really curious about that.
I can't speak for all CISOs out there because everyone has
of course
a different opinion. But I can definitely speak to CISOs coming up, those millennials that are now the oldest millennials, like the 41, turning 42, and those coming up the ranks that don't want to read a 34-page white paper, don't want, when they go to RSA, they're inundated with all these different vendors, and it's hard to go and sit through a 15-minute demo when you have other vendors, setting up your appointments. So I think this is really a tribute to the technical acumen and really taking something pure from the product side and weaving it into a story arc with actual characters that you fall in love with. So I think that blend really captures, I want to say, the new generation of executives that are coming into the fold. And I want to say, from my perspective, I'd rather sit through a video or a movie, and I can appreciate, the time and effort it took for me to understand, one, I'm entertained, and two, I'm learning at the same time. So I think it's best of both worlds.
That's awesome. I mean, it's probably like a breath of fresh air to security professionals who watch regular industry films that try to depict cybersecurity, and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not what's happening.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's for me, who grew up on the movie Hackers and Sneakers. It's like I was so tired of I'm cracking the password file, and it's this 3D cube that they're spinning, hacking the Gibson. Yeah, exactly. And so I think when Mel and I sat down and decided to do this, we wanted it to be technically accurate. We wanted to show, like, you can see Kali Linux in our shows. You can see a Blade RF, RTL SDR in our shows, and I think that's really going to resonate. If you look at the success of Mr. Robot, a lot of the success was because they were using real hacking tools, Wi-Fi pineapples, whatever it may be, in that show. Same with us, and so we wanted it to be technically accurate. I've become the screenwriter, and I write all of the shows, and so you have a hacker writing doing the actual screenplay, and so that technical accuracy is so important to us. And much to Melissa's point, if you look at the most recent report from HubSpot, 64% of buyers, CISOs, are making their purchase decisions off of video. Video is now king. It's the TikTok generation. People don't want to really read anymore. They want everything in the size of a TikTok video, and
Well, it does take a commitment to watch a film, by the way, or
it does. That's a good point.
A season of a show. I mean, I have to say, when I choose to go there, it's a pretty big decision. So I would say, like, you're actually, I want to push back on that a little bit, because I want to say what you're offering is actually, you're bringing people into their better selves. I think you're saying, like, I know you don't want to be bored, but like, you also need to kind of throw yourself into this if you're really going to be truly entertained. And I think that's the beauty of like a movie or a season of a show, where you actually, as a viewer, have to be invested. I don't know if that is that something like, I actually, we talk about the TikTok generation, but I do think you're kind of like healing that in a way. I don't know if that's like overly,
No, I like that quote. No, I mean, I need to use that quote on our website. Thank you. That's true.
Colin, I hacked the mainframe. Yep. That's
great. Exactly. Well, I mean, here's the thing. The fact of the matter is that you do need to hold the audience's attention. We live in a world of attention deficit disorder, right? And so, if you look at bingeable or binge-worthy series on Netflix, ending that show on a cliffhanger. That's what I've really tried to do in the screenplays I write, is making sure that at the last moment that we are actually following this cadence called Save the Cat. And it's actually the name of my keynote presentation for the Cyber Marketing Con next week. Is Save the Cat. And it's this idea that you follow sort of this model, if you will, for how a story arc should go to hold that viewer's attention. And I love the way you phrase that, in healing people from this sort of TikTok 30-second, 15-second video kind of short attention span, where holding the audience's attention for 26 minutes is difficult, and
you've really earned it. I mean, you've earned it if you're doing something like that. I want to throw out too, I mean, back to kind of like this season of the show is really all about like looking into what the heart of marketing is. Like, marketing is a deeply human thing. And of course, there's a whole world of it that becomes opportunistic and manipulative and all those things. And I feel like anyone who's real and authentic will agree that that's not good marketing. So what occurred to me, and that's why I thought of this theme, is that like authentic humanness is the key to any good marketing. So I almost think like what you guys are doing, just even as a metaphor, like the holding people in suspense. I just had a vision when you said that of an email cadence, like just a basic email cadence. Like, what if you took the energy in an email cadence to like make the person want to see what you were going to say next week when they were going to bother you with the automation next week?
Exactly.
And I don't know. I just had this like crazy thought that, everything is almost like a microcosm. When you're doing something well, it's because it's human. So how can you apply that to the things that people are really frustrated with in other parts of marketing?
Yeah, no, that's true. And it's really to me about and we put a lot of thought into each and every episode and what that story arc is about, and we also give our co-producers a choice between serialized or episodic, meaning does each show build on the previous episode, or is it more episodic where each and every show is a different story arc? And so, building on that suspense, like you mentioned, or building on what happens next week is so important to the show. It's so important to the story arc. And I would say that, I think, Mel, keep me honest here, but every single series we've created has been serialized, where we make it binge worthy, and we make it to a point where you can't wait for that next episode to come out. And it's what's different about this style of marketing is it's actually drawing the people to the website and drawing them to wanting to come to find out, hey, is the next episode of Ransom out? Is the next episode of Dark Ops out?
Right. That's it's literally like, you don't need any metrics. You just need to know how many people are thinking about it in their spare time. Right. Like
exactly. Now, when we first started out, we were releasing the plan was to release the episodes on Netflix, and these were going to be Netflix series. And so we actually have agreements now with Amazon Prime as well. But one of the things that Mel and I took a step back and said, you know what? Instead of Netflix taking all of the profits from this and getting a portion of that, what if we were to become the Netflix? And I don't know if you saw the recent launch, but we've now announced our own TV network that's launching in January.
Yeah.
I
didn't know how to bring that in and talk about that, but it sounds like you've been doing the shows, but then it's going to be on streaming.
Correct. Yeah. So I mean, now, for example, with Ransom, that's actually going to be released to Amazon Prime. But we are also we don't have there's no exclusivity rights with like Apple TV Plus and Amazon Prime. But so we have the ability to release these Night Studios originals on our own TV network. Now, the TV network will be available on Apple TV Plus, Roku, Hulu, and all these other devices and Fire. But it's the idea that we're bringing this content to everyone everywhere, and it will be global, so people in other countries will be able to watch as well.
That's great. And I mean, cybersecurity is definitely, I love that also, like, there is this intention that buyers will be engaged, but it has this like absolutely authentic alternative mission of really just educating people about this industry that's really growing so much. People are really curious about it. I usually don't like to talk about what I do in my social life. I don't know. I like having this kind of whatever. But people increasingly are like wanting to talk about cybersecurity, and they're just kind of like interested in it. And is it something I should worry about? And I do think that, it's really cool that it also applies to like educating the masses.
And it's interesting because if you think about it, so much of the threats that are at the front door of the corporate network, a lot of those are originating from compromised home user devices or compromised accounts. So, for example, a website that's compromised, a home user may be using that same password on that website that they're using at their company. And so just for the mere fact that their home user consumer account was compromised, that password now works to VPN into their network or what have you. So I mean, I agree with you. I feel like we've reached an age where there cannot be this sort of, oh, that's a home user's problem. Oh, that's a corporate problem. Cybersecurity is very much ubiquitous now across everything, and it has to be pervasive at your Christmas cocktail parties, because you do have issues and I get these messages on LinkedIn or Twitter all the time. It's like, hey, my crypto account was hacked. How do I get back to it? Or my Instagram account was taken over, and I had 500,000 followers. It's a very common thing, and it's so, and
it's so
it's
cool.
weird.
By the way, is there a market for that? Like kind of individuals and influencers who like need help with that? Like, are there people who help them?
Yeah,
or
I
just
mean,
like
I think,
you know someone?
I mean, it's interesting because, you know, some of the people that, like, we just had a family friend. I won't mention his name, but we just had a family friend who dealt with this, and he had just heard about the concept of multi-factor authentication. So I agree with you. I think that, I feel there's a need there to educate the home user, but, you know, it's for me. It's like, how it's 2022. How can you not know what multi-factor authentication is? You know, and the problem is also, we're to blame. Corporate America's to blame because, you know, when you go through setting up a bank account, there's no default requirement to set up a multi-factor authentication app. You just you get your account, you log in, you set your password. You know, there's nothing like, please download Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator and scan the QR code and add it as a multi-factor authentication.
It's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. I actually was looking into just like, because I have to reset my passwords most of the time that I want to get into accounts that I don't get into often. So I was like, I should use an authenticator, and they don't make it easy. It's not easy.
It's
No.
yeah, a lot of people struggle with that. So, you know, I mean,
Oh, I was just going to suggest, like, you know, also it's you're right. It's very difficult because once you upgrade your phone and you don't back up your authenticator app and you have it tied to all your different apps or email accounts, that gets lost. And then you have to reach out to every individual business to reset your authenticator app. So you have to
go. Phone number hasn't changed.
Why? It happened to me, so I had to go through the struggle. But
Yeah.
so it gets complicated for sure.
Yeah. So okay. So here's kind of getting into some questions that I wanted to ask every guest. So first of all, I feel like, Alissa, you have no problem if I said you're a marketer. Like, you're a hacker, but you're a marketer. Melissa, would you feel comfortable today calling yourself a marketer?
No, I wouldn't. I didn't go to school for marketing. I'm not gonna lie.
Right. No. Meaning like, if defining marketing as, you know, kind of this idea of like communicating ideas, like, is it still, it's not something you're like, oh yes, I have become a marketer.
I wouldn't feel 100% comfortable with it yet.
Sure.
But definitely over the last 2 years, I feel like I've been pushed in that direction.
Cool.
And I love it. I think it's fantastic. And, you know, Alissa always tells me, Mel, you're never too old to reinvent yourself. So I went from 22 years of cybersecurity in every different capacity, whether it's an incident responder or a threat intel analyst or a SOC analyst or a SOC manager. I went into every single capacity, including the executive side. And Alissa was like, in 2020, she's like, quit your corporate job and let's run these family of companies, and you're just going to dive into every facet of it. So I feel like I'm constantly.
You have to explain. You have to explain the backdrop of that because you were working for a competitor at the time. So
actually, you guys were secret when I met you.
Yeah. We were secret. Okay, so
can I say that? I hope it's okay. I said that.
That's fine. I mean, there's no secret to it now, but yeah, I mean, like, I used to own an MSSP. Now I'm the CISO of that MSSP, but I was, you know, one of the top executives in that MSSP business, and I loved it. I worked there for 5 years. I learned a lot. And Alissa goes to me, she's like, hey, would you rather, you know, continue working for this company or work for the family of businesses? And obviously it was an easy answer, right? So just
I mean, I can see like with all the things that you had, you know, the amount of things that you're managing as a security defender, I mean, easily could probably manage anything with many moving parts. So
yeah. And even you know, those different roles I did in the past, you're wearing 4 or 5 different hats anyway, right? So it's not like it's one job and that's it. So
cool.
I feel like now
it's a great segue for our meet cute story. I feel, you know, like, in the fact that she left out the part that Herjavec tried to buy my company and I turned it down, and, you know, there was this big, huge thing around it. So Mel, when we met, Mel and I met at Blackhat briefings. So she was nominated for Female Executive of the Year, and I was nominated for Female Hacker of the Year. And so that night at the gala, Mel, if you don't mind me saying, she brought her brothers, her date, and I'm like, I was thinking, you know, she's eyeing me. Like, when I walked in, we kind of like locked, you know, eyesight, and she's here. I'm like, oh, that must be her date. I didn't realize it was her brother. And so, Mel, do you want to say, you're the best at saying it?
It was cute because obviously anyone in that gala, there was a lot of great cybersecurity women, CISOs, Teresa Payton, Christine Vanderpool, all big fans of. And of course, I also knew Alissa Knight because I, read her white papers. She's on YouTube, so you could say I was a fan for sure. And I told my brother, I was like, oh, it would be great to meet Alissa Knight. I would love to go up and just kind of shake her hand. And she had this entourage of people around her. So
not shocking.
Brother Matt, I'm like, hey, just, come. And he's not into cyber. So he's just like, oh, go. I'm going to finish my beer right here. Like, you go and hang out with your friends. So I dragged him, of course, and he's a good sport. And, it was funny because I was like, oh, I'm going to meet Alissa Knight. I go up and I introduce myself, and she looked at me as if she saw a ghost. And it was I was like, oh, all right. I'm Alissa Knight from Herjavec Group. And she thought I was there as a spy, apparently, because Robert was there trying to, well, I don't know what the timing was, but at one point in time, he tried buying her company. So she thought I was there not as a friendly, hey, I just want to meet you, but are you spying on me sort of thing. So it got a little awkward.
I'm a spy, but I'm going to come right up to you.
Yeah. So it was fun. Obviously the group of us went up and had drinks at the Mandalay Bay where the venue was hosted. And then the next day I left because I live in Vegas. And my brother
you can't leave. You can't skip over the bar. Okay, so when we were in the bar, there was a porch on the outside of the bar, and she was getting my drink, and I walked out onto the porch, and I get in and locked into this conversation with people on the porch, and like 30 minutes later, I'm like, where is she? Where did she go? So I come back in. I find out she ditches me, right? Like, she's gone. And then she didn't know that there was a porch on the outside. So she thought I ditched her. Yeah. So we both thought each other.
I think you do need to write the movie. I'm just
here. So I'm a native to New York, so I was born and raised in Queens, Long Island, Brooklyn.
I can tell. I love that.
And I don't have time to wait around for anyone who leaves after 10 minutes. So I told my brother, like, let's get out of here. Let's go home. I didn't look for anyone.
So I get back to those. I'm like,
I'm so happy we got the story without me even like awkwardly, pushing for it.
Yeah,
so thank you.
I think it's such a funny meeting. But like the thing is that I get back to my hotel and I'm like, I can't have this girl thinking I ditched her. Like, what if she thinks I ditched her? And so I just went on this crazy Google spree looking for her email address, and I sent I think I emailed 2 or 3 different email addresses, Mel. And so I started guessing her email address at Herjavec Group, Melissa at Mzakopola.
By mistake, you hacked into her email and you hacked into her.
Yeah,
exactly.
Reverse engineer my email address for sure.
Yeah,
that's actually such a great part of the story. You just did what a hacker does when they're freaking out because they need to find something.
I started stalking her. I'm like, does this chick have social media? And so I'm like, hey, look, let's make a coffee.
Good.
And she acted as my Uber the whole day next day and drove me around to the different, because I was speaking at QueerCon, and yeah. So it was cool, and the rest is history. We had coffee together and got married 6 months later. So.
Oh my! And now we have a coffee company.
And now you have a coffee company, and that's something I'm gonna ask to try that. Anyone who makes their own coffee likes coffee a lot, and it's gonna be good, I'm assuming.
Well, so Night Coffee. I've always wanted to have a coffee shop, and so we're opening our first coffee shop in Vegas, and our first roast will start shipping at the end of the year. And so, cool. Yeah, it's cybersecurity themed coffee beans. So the first roast is going to be called Gray Hat. And so, so it's each roast is going to be named after something in cyber. Yeah, so it's fun. We're excited.
I love it.
Yeah.
So another one of my questions that I'm trying to ask everybody is that I do have this little, I don't know, I guess it's like a belief or an exploration, or thesis is a good word for it, that people who like good messaging and good content, like knew that about themselves when they were younger, like even when you were a teenager or even a child. So I, just as an example, I was telling, like I would watch Barbie commercials and like think to myself, I don't want to be an adult because I'm enjoying this so much. And I know I'm not going to enjoy it when I'm an adult because I clearly see they're not into it. And, so there was something about whatever that particular commercial was, it really got to me and I noticed it. And I had like some kind of not just consumer relationship with it. Does that make sense? Like a little bit of like breaking down that wall, if that makes sense. And, I always like when I hear good messaging, it makes my heart happy. So, as I call myself a marketer, and I just recently started thinking like this is like who I am. I've always thought about like good messaging. When I see a production well done, it like makes me happy. So can you trace that to, when you were younger, the movies you liked, the way you engaged with media, anything like that? I'm just this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, I feel like marketing is going through this radical shift, right? Where, it's really changing and it has to change, right? So people really don't want to be advertised to anymore, or marketed to. The marketing, I feel, needs to really adapt and change with the new generation of consumers. For me, I grew up in a marketing household. Very few people know this about me, but my father was the head of marketing for Sun Microsystems. For those of you who are old enough to remember Sun before Oracle bought it.
You really were like, that was your baby.
Very young age. But no, but it's funny because
it gets interesting. It's different for everyone. Like that makes sense. Okay.
But I grew up in a household where my dad would come home and be like, you're a hacker. He knew I was a hacker. He knew what I did. This was prior to me getting arrested. But he would come up and be like, what do you think about this product name? Or what if I were to name it this? Or what do you think about this logo? So I was part of the process without realizing it. And so it was funny because I feel like we never kind of want to do what our parents did. If you asked me, 30 years ago, if I wanted to be a marketer, I'd be like, hell no. Like, what do you mean? I don't want to do what my dad does. And it's funny because I feel like I just kind of woke up one day and I was a chief marketing officer or, it was doing
it. But you cannot hide. You cannot.
Yeah. That's the thing is I feel like I feel like everyone is in marketing, right? I feel like no matter what you're doing, you're marketing. If you're talking about the new startup that you just got hired at a party or over drinks with someone, you're marketing in a sense. Everyone is part of marketing.
Good or it's bad, right? I mean, that's what it is. And like it's either good or bad.
Even as a CISO, it's funny because you asked Melissa, and she doesn't consider herself a marketer, but her speaking at a conference
she said yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is that, with Melissa speaking as a CISO at a conference on stage, and she's talking about the company that she works for, she's in essence marketing Briar and Thorn, our MSSP, to the audience. She may not be a chief marketing officer, but she's still marketing, and so I feel like, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, I feel like that's the best form of marketing, where it's not a punch in the face sort of marketing. Right. It's very subtle. It's kind of like what we're doing in our TV series, it's like we're not advertising the product. It's not a commercial for the product. The product is protecting that company, from the villain, and so it's you're understanding what the product does without realizing we're marketing to you,
Right.
So I think
that's marketing where you. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say, because this is literally coming up every time we have the show, which is marketing. Yeah. To be marketing and to be a good marketer is to be good at humaning. I mean, just to be human, and you can't really skip steps. Like what you guys are doing, you can't just sit down one night, have a glass of wine, and write a screenplay and think it's going to be good. You can't skip steps, and you do that, and you earn your audience, like you were saying before, which I just think is so interesting. That is the theme. Like you mentioned that it's coming up everywhere. Just this idea that marketing is being pushed to change, and I do think there's good and there's bad, and marketing in the middle does nothing. So it's really almost very extreme because
Yeah.
I agree.
No,
And
and I feel like we as consumers are very attuned to that, right? We're very attuned to sort of a greasy used car salesman approach to marketing or sales, whereas it's almost like where like even at maybe at a subconscious level, even if it's subconsciously, we just know when we're being marketed or advertised to, and it turns us off, right? It turns us off. But if we love a brand so much because someone we follow, an influencer or whatever, someone we follow is talking about that brand, in a way, we don't feel like we're being marketed to. We're listening to someone that we respect and follow and that we're inspired by talking about a brand. All of a sudden, it's different. All of a sudden, we're not being advertised to. We're listening to someone we trust and we're influenced by trying to tell us about something they love. And it's and what it's like
that relationship can't be, that has to be built properly. So Melissa, I'm curious about you because you're the one we don't have you on our side yet as a marketer. So I'm curious.
I didn't have that young, obviously I didn't have that young feeling, I'm going to be a marketer, or I'm going to try to dab into marketing. I want to say I truly felt I had to learn marketing about 15 years ago when I worked for the government sector, right? Department of Defense, and I worked for both sectors, defense and energy. And in both capabilities that I supported, I had to brief the federal customer, I had to brief active duty members, and I had to sell them on a methodology and capability. And you can't do that with just technical jargon. You have to kind of paint the full picture. That's what marketers do. You're kind of showing them the client or the end user journey. And I had to learn that on my own without even calling it marketing. And I also did that oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's exactly, I mean, that really, that falls into this. But I do want to ask you, so I'm not saying, did you think about marketing when you were younger? I'm saying, were you sensitive to messaging or something around that? Like when you were younger, when you were a teenager, even younger, whatever it is, did you find that you had a more sensitive ear for even, I'll tell you an example that's great. A lot of people had a teacher that just really explained things well. And it was music to your ears or something. You know what I'm saying? Really early on. So I'd love to hear that.
In high school for sure. I want to say, like you said, somebody who can teach you something in a very complex topic in a very easy manner. So growing up in New York, the great thing about the school system that we had is you can pick and choose your teachers, right? So if you absolutely weren't learning it that way, you can choose another one. So I did that a lot. I'm like, well, I can't learn from you, but this person is fantastic.
What school was that? That's amazing.
Yeah, no, and I give my mother a lot of credit because she supported us and different people in learning, whether it's visually or picking up a book and learning it that way. But yeah, that's all about messaging and communication and being really good at it. And as I got older, I got really well at communicating to others and making sure I didn't offend anyone. You also have to change the way you talk to different audiences. It's almost like the love language.
Marketing. Right.
Yeah, you have to really speak their language to get your point across in a very short amount of time. So I feel like I got really good at that going into my career, obviously in tech. And for someone who's very technical, very analytical, messaging is probably the one of the most important things to support your internal communications team or your client that you're supporting. And I think for me, I had to learn the hard way, obviously, and I learned pretty fast because I was briefing to high level executives, steering committees.
Can you share your favorite? And this is for both of you. And I'd love to hear both of yours favorite cybersecurity metaphor.
Ooh, Alissa, we have a couple of them, right?
Yeah, I'll let you go first on that one.
A cybersecurity metaphor?
Like when you're going to speak to those, generals or whatever, what did you have to explain? How did you explain it?
Well, for me, and I might offend somebody if I say this, but I had to really think about what I said to anybody in the government sector because, you're talking about, national security and all that good stuff. And I kind of took that knowledge, and when I actually went over to the dark side and joined the corporate side, it was a lot about fear mongering, right? And making sure you're not scaring the crap out of people to buy your product. And we actually just came from Alissa and I attended a pretty good meeting in London where one of the main VCs said the best salesperson is cyber because they can scare the crap out of you to buy something. And to me, I'm like, oh, that hits my heart a little bit because I'm like, oh, we're all about integrity, and you don't want to scare someone to buy something. You really want to prove the efficacy of the product, right? So for me, I don't know, a cyber metaphor, I couldn't really pinpoint one.
I should have had you prepare it because everybody has one that they love, but it's really hard to come up with it on the spot.
I'll interject here. I'd say for me, cybersecurity is warfare is probably my favorite metaphor. It's like because if you think about cybersecurity, it's very different than any other industry out there because it's for the first time corporations are being brought onto a battlefield. Right, they're being brought into a conflict of a nation state conflict. Where in any other industry do you know of where a corporation is being brought into battle space against a nation state, a hostile nation state, or state or non-state sponsored actors? It's crazy to think about, right? If you imagine a massive battlefield, right? Let's say a massive World War II battlefield. You got Nazi Germany, and you have the United States or Britain or whatever, and it's trench warfare. Instead of seeing soldiers in those trenches, you see a bunch of businessmen and businesswomen in suits, holding guns. What? Like, to me, I feel like that's the best metaphor because it really describes where we are today, in the fact that corporations on a daily basis are having intellectual property stolen by hostile nation states. Like, look at how the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter plans were stolen from Lockheed Martin by the Chinese, and how they have a jet exactly similar to our F-35 because they stole the plans from a defense contractor. So I feel like that very accurately describes where we are today, where you may be working in corporate America, whether you have a big cybersecurity budget as a multinational corporation or you're a startup, you all face the same enemy, and they're well-resourced, well-equipped, well-funded, and they have all the time in the world to get at least one thing right, whereas defenders have to get it right all the time. Right. So, I think I would say that's probably my favorite metaphor because that's the world we live in. That is
great. I imagine you can really get people on board if you kind of bring that intensity into the picture. But it's like with Melissa, though, when you're talking to the military, how do you get a fire under their butt?
Yeah, it's all about capability, efficiency, really
efficiency. That makes sense.
Yeah, to me, it's more of how can we make sure we're prepared for any situation, right? And being able to, and cyber is one of those niches where you have so many talented young individuals that are building these new tools now to make the job super easy. So I think that's the big sell right there. And also doing it with integrity, right? You don't want to really hurt the program you're trying to support. So
that's great. But it's so funny because I like that there's this interesting amount of repetition when all the guests I have, they're coming from so many different places, but there's the repetition really shows the truth of what this industry is going through. And I do see that a lot, that the startups that are really being highlighted and like really hot right now are kind of smoothing the processes out and making them more efficient rather than, the sexy new tools. And that is really interesting. I'm hearing that a lot. So I wanted to just make sure that you guys have an opportunity. It's the Cybersecurity Matchmaker. So we like to make matches. That's like what I do all day long. Sometimes it's my job. Sometimes it's just my addiction. And so I wanted to just ask you guys who do you want to meet these days, and who can reach out to you? And obviously I can help make it happen if you need it, but I want to ask you to let people know where to find you and all that.
Yeah. I think Mel's probably going to say the same thing, but I would say, a CMO who wants their own TV series would love to talk to anyone who's responsible for marketing or product marketing who understands and gets that they want to separate themselves from the bloody red ocean of competitors fighting for market share and a blue ocean strategy of wanting to do something different with TV production and have their own series. Would love to meet with you and talk to you and see how we might be able to help you.
Cool.
But yeah,
for sure.
Same. And then just LinkedIn, reach out on LinkedIn. Are you pretty responsive to that?
You could, send AK. My email address is ak@knightgroup.co. Or, you can go to our website, knightstudios.com. But we have the different brands, but the best way is probably, reach out to me on LinkedIn or, Twitter, or just email me ak@knightgroup.co, and Melissa is mk@knightgroup.co.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. This was amazing. I mean, it was fun. Yeah, like we got the meeting story without even trying. So,
you got the fun facts from us.
Yeah, the fun facts, right? So,
oh, sorry. I was saying, when we met in Tel Aviv, wasn't that like right when the pandemic started? We didn't know the word COVID yet, right?
We did not. We were sitting in that hotel lobby that had the endless carafes of really good Israeli wine. Do you remember that?
And everyone's like coughing around. We don't know why people are coughing. It was like, wasn't it like March? It was early March or February of 2020. Like it was
March.
It happened. I think it was
January,
end of January, because I remember I came back from RSA. Yeah, because RSA was after that, and I came back from RSA like with COVID. I think.
Yeah. I think everyone. That was crazy. Yeah, that was before our lives changed. But no, we absolutely adore you, and we're so thankful to be on your show.
Thank you.
And
let's have
we're gonna
have a drink next week.
Sure.
Okay, can't wait. I can't wait to hear your keynote. It's going to be amazing at the Cybersecurity Marketing Society Con in Virginia. So we'll see you there. Cool. Have a great weekend.